Hey, what is up? You're listening to the TouchArcade Show, episode 69. My name is Brad Nicholson. I'll be your host for this morning, afternoon, or evening, whenever you're listening to this podcast. And today, I'll be joined by my two usual dudes, President-in-Chief of TouchArcade.com and Yelp Elite member, Eli Hodap. What is up, my man?
Nothing. I feel like I've spent a lot of time on Skype today with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's almost like you're in my room with me.
I am. I'm in your closet right now with a microphone. Kind of dirty in here. Just going to tell you.
Closet's actually exceedingly clean and well organized.
No,
so
not really.
Stick that in your pipe and smoke it.
It's not.
My t-shirts are organized by color, so...
Wow.
I do that too.
He speaks. That's the bearded one, Jared Nelson, who's also joining us this week.
I think that's kind of like the mark of a serial killer, but I don't care.
I have my shirts, the way they're organized, are by color and brand.
I don't do brand.
So I have like stuff from Abercrombie, video game shirts, and then like miscellaneous stupid internet shirts.
Right.
3 different segments. I don't know. It's probably creepy.
Yeah, vaguely. But I guess I have a very limited wardrobe. I only wear like 3 colors, so I don't know.
Muscle shirts, and nipple shirts.
Nipple shirts, especially. That's the new thing. Although I have to say, it's really hard to find a good tee that shows off your nipples that isn't too big.
Oh man, the American Apparel 50/50 shirt. Mm-hmm. I would throw every T-shirt I had away if I had enough to wear those every cycle of laundry.
I take fashion cues from wrestlers like Triple H makes things really simple and also really tight. So,
you know why I don't care about Triple H?
Why?
Because I have a knife.
Yeah. So recent development here. We were sitting around talking about God of Blades, which is a video game we'll talk about very soon. I promise everyone out there. But while we were talking about God of Blades, you you dropped that you bought a knife on Amazon, and you wouldn't talk about the reason. You care to explain?
Oh, the reason is there was no reason.
Okay,
I had to open a box, and I didn't have a cutting implement, so I just kind of ripped it open. I was like, man, how convenient would it be if I was just one of those people that had a pocket knife?
Okay.
So I took my phone out of my pocket and ordered one on Amazon. Done.
Great.
2 days later, and now I will always be one of those people that has a knife.
One of those weirdos, I would say, too. The guy who whips out the knife.
Not excessive. I mean, like, if it was like a switchblade or, one of those butterfly knives, all that probably be pretty cool.
Butterfly knives are awesome.
I mean, I got a regular knife on here. I've got a saw, which I just discovered when we started recording. I didn't know it had a saw. That's cool. Mm-hmm. A screwdriver / bottle opener, and something else that can probably also be used as a screwdriver, and a can opener.
Great.
So what more do you need? Really, tell me.
I don't know. A Dremel?
I could be on a desert island right now, and I could survive.
And be really fucking hungry. That's what it sounds like.
I could hunt with my knife.
How you gonna catch anything with that knife?
Using my stealth.
Stealth. What kind of island is this, though? We need to kind of go through our survivor man.
Desert. Single palm tree.
Desert, single palm tree. So there's no indigenous life.
I would fish with it.
You would fish with your knife in the ocean.
Like Les Stroud, Survivor Man.
Yeah.
He ties his knife to a stick.
Okay.
And then have a spear.
You don't have any sticks. You got a single palm tree.
Oh, yeah.
We whittle it down into a stick.
You whittle the tree.
I have to kill myself.
Exactly. I think that's what it's perfect for, is ending your misery, maybe.
You'll probably be able to perform surgery on yourself to dislodge the entire mozzarella stick that you're trying to swallow whole.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about that, too. So, pre-show, Eli Hodap ate a mozzarella stick and then threw this one out here. Hey, guys, what would happen if I ate one whole?
It's a serious question. That's a good question, I feel like.
And I challenged him to do so, but
I'm gonna try it later. Like, I think it's gonna involve some choking. Like,
it's gonna plug your throat up pretty good. I think.
I have a feeling that
my throat's wider than a mozzarella stick. Give me a break.
It's something I didn't need to know about you.
This is gonna go down like the cinnamon trick, except now you have a piece of cheese lodged in your throat and you can't get it out.
I figure that your body's insides are probably about as wide as your average turd, right?
Maybe.
I feel like your average turd is just wider than a mozzarella stick.
Okay.
I don't know, man. Let's talk about video games.
I don't know either.
This podcast went to dark places quick, but we have much lighter places to go. Of course, the big news this week: iPhone 5, new iPod Touch, no iPad Mini actually, 4-inch screens, amazing stuff. We'll talk about that in our second segment this week because Jared Nelson, you were there, you saw it, you got some hands on with it, my man.
I got sweaty with it, yep.
He got sweaty with it, folks. But first, let us talk about video games. Let's get settled down here. And I'll lead it off. I'll talk about a video game that I played today alongside Eli Hodap. It's called God of Blades. You might remember this from a post. I guess, man, that might have been like a month ago or 2 months ago or something like that, Eli.
It feels like a long time ago.
Yeah, it was a long time ago.
I want to say like January or something.
You're probably right. I mean, it had one of those nebulous soon dates. But, when we first looked at it, we were just like, great, it's a side-scrolling hack and slash starring a muscly dude with a big sword. Cool. We can get behind that.
That's like the bullet list of Brad Nicholson's perfect game.
Yeah, totally. No, I was already in. But upon further review, I have to say that this game is more than that. It's I would call it artistically inspired as well, which is, really the last thing that you would expect from a game about big men with big swords beating up big monsters. You know what I mean? It's got this really, really cool art style that developer White Whale says is inspired by pulp fantasy, like late 1970s, late 60s kind of stuff. And you can really tell, and it also has this amazing sound production. It's like a synth pop, new wave kind of stuff, and it really, really shows through. Like altogether, this game is bizarrely brilliant. I mean, it's got this bent, awesome fantasy world and this super unusual vibe that you can really dive into. It reminds me a lot of like a Xenoclash. Like when that game came out, everyone was like, everyone took a step back and they're like, "Whoa, this game might have some mechanical issues, but this world, these characters, everything in it are so great. I'm gonna overlook that." And that's kind of what God of Blade has going on. Like it's got this fantastic production, but some of the hack and slash mechanics are a little funky. Some weird stuff going on that I'm able to overlook, at least just because of the strength of its presentation.
So style over substance in this one, you would say?
Well, I mean, for instance, if you watch the video, I pointed out a couple times that you're constantly running. I don't know if I would call it like an endless runner. I mean, you don't control your running, so I guess you're endlessly running.
Right.
But when you attack dudes that don't instantly die, you like push them back with you. But there's not an animation for them to walk backwards. They just kind of like stand there but slide with you, and it's kind of off-putting.
Yeah, it's a little weird, and it kind of got me thinking. This game kind of has like a rhythm to it. Like when I was playing, I was noticing like if I hit enemies in a specific way and kind of stayed in the flow, like everything really worked together really well. It's when you do hit those like little collisions that the game starts kind of looking funky and it starts kind of falling apart.
I wonder if that's intentional.
I feel like it is. I mean, it has to be, right?
But I don't know. I mean, because like from watching you play, there wasn't a whole lot of like cues in regards to that's what you were supposed to be doing. It was just easiest that way.
Right. Yeah.
So I wonder if we're just like reading more into the game than is there.
It's definitely possible. This wouldn't be the first time that I've overanalyzed or misinterpreted a game mechanic or a flow or a system or something like that.
It's definitely a neat looking game though, and I hope there's some more tweaking and tuning before it's released, but it isn't going to be released like very soon.
Yeah, I mean, as of this recording, it kind of has a nebulous soon date, waiting for everything on that line to get firmed up.
Kind of, this is, you play it and you're like, oh, this is neat looking.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it is trippy, man. I love it.
That's cool. When everything's so samey on the App Store, I mean, even when games have kind of like, just okay gameplay, it's still kind of neat to see people going out in left field for like the visual and audio style. So
yeah, I mean, artistically, this thing really sings. It's pretty cool. It's pretty cool. And speaking of video games, Eli Hodap, you played one. It's called Fieldrunners 2 HD.
I've been playing a lot of Fieldrunners 2 over the last 2 days.
I don't know how you could. I mean, like, how are you even living anymore? I mean, surely you can't afford your rent.
Oh, well, I'm on the street, first of all.
Okay.
I mean, the game's like $8.
Yeah.
Whoa.
I had to suck the fillings out of my teeth and take them to Cash for Gold.
Yeah, I was about to ask. And then,
And
did you get a paycheck advance too?
Yeah, well, that was a problem. I mean, the Cash for Gold would only cover me for about $4 worth.
Yeah.
And then I had to scrounge up another $4, so I got a payday advance, and then I forgot that you had to pay tax.
Oh God.
So I basically stood outside selling lemonade, but I mean it was one of those days where it wasn't very hot,
Yeah.
so no one really came by, and I ended up losing $3 then on
What?
ice and lemons
Oh.
because I overpurchased.
Oh my goodness.
So then I reinvested, and thankfully the next day it was warm enough that I almost had enough money, and then I just asked my mom for an advance in my allowance, and I was able to finally afford it.
And during this, I'm sure you had to cancel your Netflix subscription.
Oh, dude. Well, yeah. First of all, I mean, like, I canceled so much and I cut so many corners, but I made sure with each step I signed on as many internet forums as I could to complain.
Good, because that's going to matter.
Because
It
I
really
didn't want to
is.
be alone in my financial misery.
Yeah.
So, I mean, but phew, I was able to do it.
So
Finally pulled it off, and man, is this game good on the iPad.
So if you haven't caught on, by the way, because I know some listeners of our podcast don't really read the main site, Fieldrunners 2 apparently cost a lot of money.
It's like it's $8.
Yeah, which I guess is an astronomical sum to some people. Do what?
I mean, it's not universal, which that kind of sucks.
No, it's a bummer, but
Especially with how much stuff has been universal these days. But at the same time, it's a great game. It's probably one of the best tower defense games, and I think you could make a strong argument that it is the best tower defense game available right now.
absolutely.
And it's in any other medium that would be a totally reasonable and like cheap price for such a game that has such high production qualities and such good balancing and so many hours of gameplay, and like the reaction they're getting from our community members on their pricing is just insane.
Yeah, it strikes me as nuts, and I have a hard time. Like, I read one person who was kind of pissed because we were making fun of message board people in our video about the game. Message board responses to the price that were particularly crazy, and he was trying to be rational about it while still being angry at us, and basically he had this argument that was just like. There was some argument of like worth, like a value proposition, and like apparently it's the developer's job, according to him, to kind of like price a game competitively with the App Store, but still make a profit. So like in his estimation, I guess Fieldrunners 2 should have cost $6.
I ran the numbers. I just imagine him sitting there with like one of those like green accountant visors, and like 1940s style calculator with a pull arm.
Right.
And like all the ticker tape coming out, just typing away, pulling the thing, type. I've determined this game's worth at $5.45, not a penny more.
I mean, that's kind of the world. I mean, like we have this conversation a lot, maybe not necessarily in this context. I mean, it's just like, value propositions are weird because they're totally subjective, right? $10 to me is not obviously $10 to a lot of people on TouchArcade's message board. Where $10 is like, I don't know, rent or something. I mean, it's insane. Like how like that sliding scale is.
Well, the thing is like there's a lot of fancy, expensive things in this world that I admire greatly and would love to have. But if I think something's too expensive, I just
don't buy it.
Yeah, just don't buy it.
That's the thing that kind of floors me. I mean, like ultimately, Fieldrunners 2 wouldn't have the price tag that does if people didn't buy it. Right, and that's your right as a consumer. And if a price does piss you off, if it turns you off, even if it just turns you off, even if you're not angry about it, you don't have to buy it, man.
Right.
I mean, and
my favorite was the dude that was like going out on a limb buying it, but he warned Subatomic Studios, "You better not drop this fucking price. Ooh. If I give you $8, it better stay $8 forever."
I think what in a weird way I kind of understand what that guy's saying though, because that's one thing I really don't like about the App Store is how developers can kind of like hit the oh shit button and then immediately drop their price if their initial sales aren't that great.
Yeah, I really hate the expectations though that like, all right, so back in the day when you bought a video game, you had the video game had a price
Right.
What was on the cartridge was what you got, and that was it. Like if you didn't want it, you couldn't afford it, whatever. If the game didn't have what you wanted, very cut and dry.
Yeah.
Now it's like people are like hedging their bets on like pricing, and then aren't buying the game as they see it today. They're buying what they want the game to be in the future.
Right.
Which is so fucking crazy. I mean, of course you're setting yourself up for disappointment when you've talked yourself into what you believe the game could be someday.
Yeah.
Or how much the game might cost someday, or whatever, instead of like making that purchasing decision right then and there. I mean, I feel like this is very basic stuff that I learned, in your freaking economics class or whatever in junior high.
It's just, I think it speaks a lot to the expectations of the App Store being all over the place, just in terms of the consumer.
I guess, and the problem is, there's no consistency between some developers,
Exactly.
like, perfect example, and they're great about it, is like the Pocket God developers. Like they're more than happy to just feed people updates. That's like their shtick is, hey, here's another update, and for a while they were updating like every 2 weeks or something like that.
Right.
So in that case, your dollar was essentially buying this kind of subscription with air quotes to this massive swath of incoming updates.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't think like it's crazy that people get pissed when developers are like, dusting their hands off. They're like, all right, dude, we made the best game we could. Here it is. Here's
Yeah.
the price.
Here you go.
And that pisses people off, which is crazy. But anyway, Fieldrunners 2 is fantastic on the iPad. It's everything I wanted in the game, because you might remember when we talked about Fieldrunners 2 the last time. We were like, wow, this game's great, but I feel like the iPhone is the wrong platform for it.
Yes.
Because the levels go on forever. There's a lot going on the screen, and it just feels like something that you want to have like sitting in your lap on your iPad instead of like right up in your face on your iPhone.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because,
a lean back kind of thing.
Yeah, the nature of a tower defense game is of that, you put your towers out and you sit and you watch what happens, right? And that just doesn't feel conducive to the iPhone to me, which feels like a much more action-y device because you hold it so much closer to you.
Yeah.
Maybe?
Yeah. No, you're right.
So, I don't know. Fieldrunners 2 on the iPad, I feel like is a platform that it was meant to be on.
Yeah, absolutely.
And,
I completely agree.
If that makes you angry, or you bought the iPhone version and now you're mad that an iPad version exists, or a million other things, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't.
Your only choice is not to buy it. I mean,
I don't know what to say. I mean, like I've enjoyed playing this game so much that I just kind of feel sorry for people that have made all these angry personal excuses for why they can't get it.
Yeah. It's a bummer. It's a bummer for those guys too. They've made an amazing game, and this port is really cool too. I mean, it has developer commentary. Think about that. Developer commentary in a tower defense game.
Yeah, I mean, it's super neat. To get to it, it's not very conducive, or it's not very obvious. You have to play a level and then go back, and you get the option.
Right. But I mean, that's crazy. That's crazy. And did you mention how like amazing the assets look in this version particularly? Like their art is fantastic, and their animation's great too. And they really put a lot of work into the Retina display assets.
Right.
For this.
This is right up there with those games that I think that you would show someone like to show off the Retina display of the iPad. I mean, it's almost, I don't know what the best way to describe it. I mean, the way I look at stuff like this is kind of like the uncanny valley with robots and like computer generated imagery. No, but you know what I mean? Where it's like anything that's like obviously fake is cool.
Right.
And then obviously anything that is like, indiscernible
Right.
is, you don't notice, but there's that like extremely sharp drop off where, you kind of like Polar Express, the movie with Tom Hanks and stuff like that. To me, I found to be very creepy.
Yeah.
And Fieldrunners is kind of a very weird comparison, I know, but like Fieldrunners is on the side where it's like almost unbelievable how good it looks.
Right.
On the iPad. It's like not like you're even playing a game as much as you're just watching this like moving picture.
Yeah. No, it seems it'll sound weird, but when we talk about the iPhone 5 stuff, the new Maps app does that same thing for me when you turn on like the 3D flyover thing and you're kind of swiping and swirling around like a city, and it goes by and it moves so smooth, and and your brain gets kind of confused because it almost looks like a helicopter flying by and filming. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's just that close to being that real that it kind of screws you up for a second. And I don't know. It's weird.
It's kind of crazy when you look at stuff like that because it's like it's not. I wouldn't even say Fieldrunners 2 is 100% on that. So you have these like weird moments where you're like, wow, this looks really good, and then like you kind of realize like, wow, this is a video game, and it's just kind of strange how it all works out. And I don't know. I mean, like I had this weird realization when I was playing this, looking back to the original iPad when I unboxed it and was like, all right, well, now what do I do with this? You know, like now we're 3 years in. And like I'm having these experiences where I'm just like floored looking at these video games.
Yeah,
which is really cool. I think.
And you know what? It makes consoles look so much weaker. You know, and it pains me to say that as a guy who always usually enjoys console experiences over mobile, just by nature of mobile development. I mean, it's seriously posing a challenge to next generation platforms. Be like, these are fucking Retina assets.
So I mean, like, yeah, if that experience isn't worth $8 to you, then I'm fucking rock on. Like I don't know.
Yeah, absolutely. I tell you what, we're gonna rock on too, because Jared, you went ahead and said you said the secret word for this podcast, iPhone 5, and I want to talk about it, but let's talk about it on the other end of a break, where we're gonna blow out the new iPhone, new iPod Touch, and talk about your experiences with those devices, and hey, maybe what those devices will mean for the future.
All that more.
Spoiler alert:
a video
game
games
costs more than $8.
Oh God, Jared, what are you doing to me?
Wow, you really, guys, you destroyed my my transition. But all that and more after this brief musical interlude. Hey, what is up? Welcome back. In case you forgot, you're listening to the TouchArcade Show. This is part 2, the part in which we talk about the iPhone 5 and the iPod Touch. In case you didn't know, guys, brand new Apple devices coming out pretty soon. In fact, you'll be able to pre-order them tonight as you're listening to this, or today, right?
Well, by the time this is posted, it would have been hours ago.
Hours ago. You should have been
midnight Friday.
You should have been on Apple.com hours ago.
Also, just a heads up, there's a site that I've seen some people have good luck with called gazelle.com, spelled like the animal.
That's
have
a
you guys
real
heard
thing?
About this?
Yeah, I've seen commercials for it. They buy old phones, right?
Yeah, apparently they're giving like close to $200 for old iPhones, and it's just a matter of, I think they send you a box, you throw it in the box, and then when they get it, you get a couple $100. So if you got an old phone sitting around,
yeah,
so that might be worth looking at. I mean, I have never used it, so I can't like vouch for how fast it works or whatever, but
yeah,
it might be worth looking into.
Yeah, maybe. I don't know. So iPhone 5, iPod Touch, a big thing, obviously, is the 16:9 ratio, the 4-inch screen, which makes both devices a little bit taller, right? Is that fair, Jared Nelson, man on the street?
They are. They're taller.
They're definitely taller devices. To the new iPhone, it's got the A6 in it, a new processor, right? I guess it's beefier, but also, doesn't tax your battery so much. Is that the thing? Is that what they said?
That's what they say, yeah.
Okay. And
processor technology is so cool how like we've been constrained with battery for so long that like they're just making it do more with less.
Yeah. Which is great. I mean,
it's kind of crazy because when you think about like when they hit like some whatever the next generation of battery tech is after lithium ion, like you're just gonna have a phone that can last for like a fucking month.
I can't wait for that
when you
day.
think about it.
That's all I want. I don't like charging.
Because when you look at like the actual capacity of the battery in your iPhone, it's basically been the same since the first iPhone.
Right.
It's just doing more or less with that same amount of power.
Unless you have a broke ass 4S.
Yeah, Brad.
Yeah, like I do. So I'm really excited for 5.
So midnight pre-orders. Brad is not staying up, if anyone was wondering.
No, definitely not.
He refuses to set an alarm. Said he will wait in the line.
I'm not going to wait at any line. I'm just going to walk into a store and buy one. That's what's going to happen.
Hey, I saw this movie called Beasts of the Southern Wild. Have you guys heard of this?
No, I haven't.
It's basically Brad Nicholson the movie. I feel like
I'm in.
it's a little girl and her dad, and they're like in this kind of like Louisiana swamp town, and they have a boat that's like the bed of a pickup truck on like 55-gallon drums filled with air.
This sounds legit.
I imagine Brad going down to the AT&T store. It's in the back of the pickup truck with like an airboat fan on it.
Sir, excuse me. Verizon store. Thank you.
Yeah, sorry, Verizon.
Thank you. I am done with AT&T.
Yeah, I think we're all switching to Verizon actually, which is something.
Yeah,
possible.
I think that says a lot about AT&T. I mean, like that. It's even hard to pay your bill with AT&T, man.
What's so fucked about that is like remember what a big deal it was when the iPhone first came out because carriers and Verizon was the worst of the worst when it came to this. I mean, the phone had their logo all over it. Every single included app was, like loaded with the Verizon logo.
Right.
With Verizon, if you wanted like any kind of custom ringtone or anything, you had to buy it through the Verizon portal.
Right.
It was just like, Verizon, just like locked down to ridiculous lengths to the point that like, this was back when I used to read a cell phone site called the Howard Forums, which is like a big community like forum site for cell phone nerds. And they would post like these hacked firmwares for their Verizon phones to like debrand them and allow you to install things outside like the Verizon ecosystem. I mean, that's how hardcore locked down it used to be. Yeah. And now like it's so insane that it's switched completely the other way where Verizon is the most reasonable carrier out there. Right. Where it's just like you choose essentially how much data you want and you can do whatever you want with it, whether that's the hotspot functionality or adding more devices or whatever else. I mean, I guess you can do that to the same extent with AT&T, but Verizon's service is their coverage maps you can't argue with them. Their LTE benchmarks are like twice as fast in every city. And
I have to say their in-store experience, if you ever find yourself in a Verizon store, is superb. Like I've never had a bad experience in one of those stores. Where in an AT&T store I have.
Oh God, AT&T stores! That is my personal hell.
Yeah, I mean it's close to Walmart Pharmacy as far as I'm concerned.
Oh yeah, in a big way.
In terms of like worst places on earth, AT&T store is pretty high up there, alongside GameStop and Walmart Pharmacy. So just very quickly, iPod Touch has a kind of like an optimized A5. Is that a fair way to kind of put that, Jared Nelson?
I guess. Yeah, I mean, I think it's like a notch above the one that was in the 4S last year.
Okay.
So it puts the new iPod Touches kind of like in between the 5 and the last generation iPods, or in between the 5 and the 4S, I should say.
Right.
Has that been confirmed by anyone though? It seems like, and I might be reading into this so far, but it seems like that's just guesstimation until a site like iFixit or whatever can.
I thought they said it.
Well, Apple doesn't talk about. I think the biggest thing with me with the iPod Touches is the RAM, and everyone know the 4th gen iPod got boned because it had really low RAM, and so even though it's like supposedly on par with like 4S or iPhone 4, it couldn't run a lot of games that well because it would always run out of RAM. And Apple doesn't say what those specs are right off the bat, so we will have to wait for someone to like tear it down and find out.
Right.
But that's kind of like the key for me to really make a final determination on the iPod Touch, because if it has enough RAM, I think it'll be cool. I mean, it's got the larger screen, it's got Retina, and so the A5 alone, I don't think will be enough to like make everything run on that thing.
Yeah, let's get to your hands-on here. One noticeable thing that I saw during the conference is the iPod Touch has really differentiated itself. It's smaller, it's lighter, it's thinner than even the iPhone 5.
It is.
So tell me a little bit about it. So you played with an iPod Touch. Let's go to it. Like, what did it feel like? How did it go? What do you think?
Well, they're like almost uncomfortably light. Like you pick them up and
scary light.
Yeah, it's almost kind of like, am I going to break this thing? But then you feel it in your hands and it feels sturdy. I mean, Apple makes some really sturdy hardware, so it feels great. And then the back, it's kind of like that.
Is it aluminum?
Yeah, I think it's that anodized aluminum or whatever. It's kind of like the
MacBook
matte
thing?
finish type thing.
Yeah,
like a MacBook, and they just feel really good. I mean, they're so light and thin, and they feel really good in your hands. And then they have these things with this little button on the back that you pop out, and then you hook this loop on, and it's like a Wii remote, like lanyard thing or whatever, like a wrist strap.
And I thought that was curious, by the way. I thought that was the most un-Apple-like Apple thing at the event. I was like,
kind of
really?
weird. I'm not sure how I feel about it. And it's also kind of weird that it's just on the iPod. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, because you can drop your iPhone just as easily as an iPod.
Yeah.
So,
well, I mean, I think it's tacky. And I think that's why they didn't put it on the iPhone.
Yeah. The iPod Touches, especially, they all come in colors now. And they look very cool, like the different colors of them. But they're definitely skewed more towards like the younger or like, you know, teenagers that can't have a phone contract that want something like this are going to like eat these things up.
Well, yeah,
the price point though is crazy, starting at $300.
No, I don't think so. Aren't they're?
Sure? I thought
I'll have to double check.
I thought I read, and I
Where's
could
our
be
fact
wrong
checker?
on this too, but I'll check while we look this up. But,
I want to say that they're almost all the same prices that
Yeah.
last year's were. Like I think it's $199 for like an 8 gig or something, $299, 16, $399, 32, something like that.
Yeah. Competitively.
okay.
Oh, go ahead.
Here we go. The fourth generation iPod Touch is still available for $199. The fifth generation iPod Touch starts at $299.
Which
it does.
by the way, is the same price as a Wii U.
Yeah, that's kind of crazy. I'll tell you which one I'd rather have.
Yeah, me too.
I was sort of shocked by this because and this kind of I don't know if we want to segue into the iPad Mini, not getting announced yet, but that kind of leaves a weird, not really a place for that with a price point, I think, on the Apple portable product.
Well,
lineup.
everyone was saying it's got to be like 200 or 250 to compete with like the Kindle Fire. And so if these iPods are even more than that, then there's not really a chance the new iPad can be any cheaper, I don't think.
I mean, but it is a real thing. iPad Mini is a real product.
Most likely.
I mean, there's been so many leaks. I mean, they're even better than some of the iPhone 5 leaks, which were completely correct.
Well,
Right?
you know what's funny is that the backs of these new iPod Touches look identical to the leaks of the iPad Mini casing, like the back casing pictures.
Oh, interesting.
They look just the same kind of curvatures and stuff like that. So I think if there's an iPad Mini, which I don't think is going to launch until the next like March, April new iPad time. I think they'll launch like another new big iPad and then the small iPad because they're really loading their kind of holiday schedule up already with all these different iPods and stuff.
You know what would be funny, though? They announce iPad Mini and sell it in October, a month before Wii U comes out with its little stupid tablet thing.
They might. I mean, a lot of people think that it'll still be this year, just a separate event for just the little iPad, but I kind of don't think so. I think that's pushing too much out there for people to buy during the holidays. They really want people to buy these new iPods and stuff like that and upgrade their iPhones. And
True.
Then you throw a new iPad out in the mix too, and then what is one to do?
Yeah, because I guess you're right. Because Apple TV, like Apple TV proper, like actual physical TV thing, that got real hot after the book came out, and everybody was like, "Dude, it's happening this week. This conference, totally."
Right.
And each conference, and now it's finally starting to cool off, where they're just like, "All right, this ain't going to happen yet."
The thing is, though, it's always seemed to me that like the leaked photos that you get are coming out of places like Foxconn and the other people actually selling the parts, which are already being mass produced.
Right.
Yeah.
So when you look at traditionally how the rumor scene works, when you get like those kind of signals, that means those products are actively being produced. And it would seem weird to me that, and especially when you look at how Apple typically does the press event and then like the week later, hey, pre-order, and the week after that it ships.
Right.
Which would seem really weird to me if we were getting like these production level leaks of iPad Mini stuff.
Like 6 months before the fact.
Yeah, like 6 months before. Like I think with how fast they ramp up production, like 6 months before a product comes out, it doesn't even exist on the assembly
No,
lines.
that's a good point. I think you're right too. So
I don't know what they're
We'll
going to
see.
price it at though.
But maybe they're stocking up because that thing's going to be like $150. You know what I mean?
I don't know, man. I think it needs to be cheap, but at the same time, it doesn't need to be cheap because when you look at it, I mean, there's not a tablet market, there's an iPad market. So like even if like the iPad Mini was like $400 or whatever, I think it would still sell more than like the cheaper Android tablets because it's an iPad and people are buying the brand name. I mean, like a perfect example for that was someone in our forums posted this video of the Jimmy Kimmel show where they like go out on the street and they show people an iPhone 4S. And they're like, "Hey, you want to see the new iPhone? What do you think of the new iPhone?" And they're showing them the one that's available now. And
They're
people
like,
that
"Whoa."
like own the actual like 4S are like, "Wow, yeah, this is faster, this is lighter, this is thinner, this is great."
Oh,
So I mean, like it's just it's a it's just showing how strong their branding is. I think that like.
Yeah. So to kind of rewind a little bit, iPod Touch has the little thing that ties around your wrist. It's smaller. It's cool. Like, did you play any games on it? Did you play the game that they showed at the event? I forgot the name of it already.
Real Racing 3?
No. The iPod Touch specific game.
That ninja thing?
Yeah, whatever that was. I don't know if they had that on the floor or not.
No, they didn't have any games loaded on it, which kind of sucked.
Right.
Because that's, what we're interested about here at TouchArcade. So it was kind of like, well, look at the new Maps app, I guess, and pretend like it's a video game.
Right.
But it was still cool to get, hands on them and feel the bigger screen and stuff like that. I was really worried when all the leaks started coming out about the taller screen, because I was like, I'm real, happy with the size of the iPhone as it is now.
Yeah.
And I've never really wanted a larger screen. I know that's like the trend or whatever, is bigger screens are better and stuff like that, but I've never really felt that way. I felt like the iPhone screen gets the job done and it's easy to use, and I don't need bigger. But that said, now that I've actually tried the taller screen, I think it works, and I think Apple did the smart thing by giving a larger screen, but doing it like in a more useful way. So like you get the extra row of icons, which is like a big deal for me because I have a million pages of crap. Yeah. And then not making it any wider, it's still super easy to hold, and it feels just like pretty much like you're holding an iPhone 4S or whatever. It doesn't feel drastically different. The upper part of the screen is a little bit hard to reach because it's so much higher up there. Like if you have smaller hands, you need to, my big thing is Notification Center. Pulling that down from the top is going to be hard on that taller screen, I think. But I think everyone will eventually get used to it.
It seemed like it was a matter of like getting used to how you hold it too. I mean, because I saw a couple different photos of how people were holding it, and it seemed like if you choked up on it a little bit more, like you could easily hit all of the screen. Whereas like you're used to like with your phone, when you hold it, kind of like maybe resting it on like your pinky or whatever.
Yeah, that's how I hold my phone. I think most people do that.
Well, I hold my phone really weird because of the whole death grip issue, like because I had AT&T phone at the time. So now I got to get used to like actually like getting up in my phone,
Well, I'm used to that, where you have your pinky under the phone, and then you're kind of bracing it with your other fingers, and then you're using your thumb. And I think that's kind of pretty standard for how people use their phone. The thing with the 4S is that it's a little bit heavy and the sides are slippery. And so if you don't have your pinky under that thing, this thing is like a bar of soap. And the new iPhone, it's not like that. It's so much lighter that it's not going to just like slip out of your hands if you don't have your pinky under it. And the sides are like that, whatever they're calling it, like the anodized aluminum or whatever. It's kind of like that rough sort of aluminum that covers the back too. Yeah. The sides are made up of that too. So the sides aren't like shiny and slippery like the 4S is. They actually have a little bit of grip to them. Which so combined with the lightness, it's not something that's going to just slip out of your hand.
Which I think was a good move, because making a phone entirely out of glass is insane.
Yeah. Yeah, it looks really good too. Like I really like the kind of gray color of that slate aluminum, and then it has the shiny black on the front bezels and stuff like that. Like this thing looks nice.
So the black phone looked good then, because I've been looking at the white versus black, and I'm just kind of like the white one looks way more tasteful in pictures, and I couldn't tell because usually I just
the way I would break it down is that the black one is the sexy one, and the white one is the bling.
Really?
Because the white one is it's white, and it's got the really shiny silver highlights. You know what I mean? And the sides of that one I think are silver too.
Right.
So it's more like, blingy, I guess. But the other one is just black and sleek, and it's, I don't know. I'm going with the black one for sure.
We've totally transitioned to iPhone 5, which is a good thing.
Yeah,
they showed no, it's great. They showed a video game called Real Racing 3. I hear it's going to be a big deal. Did you get to try that out? Like I know you talked to Rob, right, over there at EA.
Yeah, I talked to Rob Murray. He's one of the Fire Monkeys dudes that's with EA, and has been a real racing guy since the beginning ones. They just showed the on stage demo that during the keynote or whatever, which is pretty cool. So they had, Rob is sitting there talking, and then someone else was off to the side actually playing the game live while it played on the big screen. And then and he goes, oh look, there's my icon. He's racing me right now. He's like, we're racing each other. And Rob's obviously talking, and so everyone's just like, what are you talking about, dude? And he's like, obviously you can see I'm not playing. He's actually racing it's a ghost, but it's not a ghost. Like I was told not to call it a ghost because it's not. But,
I was talking to my roommates about that because I missed that part. I was watching the Gadget live blog or whatever, and they didn't really. I think they just called it ghost racing. So like, when I was talking to my roommates about it later, I was like, ghost racing. Like, who cares? And like, no. Like, you can actually interact with that. I was like,
well, when he explained it on stage, that's kind of what I thought too. And he was, they call it time shifted multiplayer or something like that. And so I was just like, what is that fancy buzzword for ghost racing? And I was like,
I think it is.
And then when I was talking to him after it and he was explaining it a little more, it's crazy. So you race your own race on your own time and you finish and you get whatever time you get. And it takes all that data of like the line you took and your accelerations, decelerations, all that stuff. And it combines it into a little package that your buddies can download at a later time and then race against. And then your car in the game, so when your buddy's racing your car, it's not just a ghost that you can drive through and that you're trying to beat. It's actually another car on the track with you.
So it's a ghost with collision detection.
Yeah, collision detection, but it also has like AI, so it'll react to what is happening to it too, and it will try and beat you. It's like a hybrid of what you did with some added AI for when somebody battles you to kind of help you out. Guy, because I was like, so I can just ram you into the wall and then be off on my merry way or whatever. And he's like, yeah, you could, but they'll probably catch up to you, or you might even do too much damage to yourself that it's not going to help you, or whatever. So it's pretty interesting. Like I think it's going to really. The game's going to need to come out, and we're going to really need to play with it to fully kind of realize what it is, because it does sort of just seem like a ghost race with AI. Like I don't know if it's anything more than that, but it's a unique idea. Like I'm really excited about it because it's hard to get and play online games and get people online all at the same time when you're on like a mobile phone. Right. So I've always thought that was kind of weird with online multiplayer games. It's like people are on and off their phones so quickly. It's hard to just connect in real time, and that's why asynchronous stuff has worked out so well. And this is almost seems like it's kind of like a solution to both.
I feel like I'm kind of over asynchronous. So
really,
yeah, I feel like I hit that point. Like I don't know. I think everyone hits that wall with asynchronous where they're just finally like, I just kind of want to just sit down and play a game with somebody.
My problem with those, I always find one that I think's cool.
Yep.
I'm like, oh, this is neat, and then I get involved in like a dozen games or whatever.
Yep.
And then, you kind of like dread getting back to it because all these people are waiting for you, but you don't have the time to like go through and play like all 12. And
that's what happened to Words with Friends with me.
And play the way you want to, no less.
Disc driving, no. Disc driving. Let me just throw that out there.
Get a couple games.
Still playing that. So I don't know. That'd be cool to see. What I'm the most interested in is always the absolutely predictable cycle of everyone shitting all over the iPhone when it gets announced, and then like 3 weeks later, the same people are like reporting the stories of like record sales numbers.
Yeah,
because I feel like this phone more than previous phones is getting pooped on. Like whoa.
Well, remember the 4S? Everybody thought it was supposed to be the 5 then, and when it wasn't, it was like, oh god. And then it went on to be the best-selling iPhone ever. And I pretty much predict the same thing with this one.
It's kind of an interesting product of like just how much got leaked, and that there were, aside from like minute technical details, there were almost no surprises on the phone.
No, that was kind of a bummer too, because you get so used to Apple events having these big surprises and stuff like that, and I think those days they're just over. Apple's too big, and it's not easy to keep those secrets anymore like it was back in the day.
People are figuring out how to find those, things out.
That's a thing too, but at the same time, I have a bunch of friends that are like not really computery people that know me as like the guy that knows about iPhones, I guess. Mm-hmm. And I have had so many people like send me text messages or whatever, be like, hey, I saw the new iPhone, looks cool, should I get one? Not texting me like, hey, did you see this piece of shit Apple released? Oh my god, I can't believe it's only a half-inch taller. What a bunch of jerk-offs. Like, no one says that outside of the internet.
Right.
Yeah. It's true. It's a vocal minority of disgruntled people that expect that every new iPhone needs to be like the greatest leap in technology ever or whatever. Look at what Apple already has done to the mobile phone industry and to smartphones in general. They've redone everything, and you can only do so much. You know what I mean? Like, what do you expect of them?
I feel like that hardcore nerd segment that like buys feature lists over everything else. Like
Yeah.
they just, I don't think that they can appreciate that. This is just a refinement.
Yeah.
Like they need who knows what.
Well, I think they've said before, like I think the iPhone 4 design, that was the most drastically different physically iPhone, because before it was like the curved backs and stuff like that, and then the iPhone came out with the new Retina screen and then the kind of squarish form factor and stuff like that. I think that was the design that they were shooting for all along, and that's why the 5 is really, it's just a thinner, lighter, but the characteristics are very similar to the 4S, like the volume buttons and the mute switch and just the squareness of it and the way it feels in your hand. It just feels like another evolution of the 4 body style. And I think that's on purpose. They like that. That's, the point they were trying to hit all along. And evolution has brought them to this point. They're not going to just be like, well, let's fucking change this thing just because, like that's what everyone wants. Drastically different something. And it's like, no, they're keeping it the same for a reason. It's because they like it and they've tested it and it's usable and all that kind of stuff. So,
right.
I don't know.
Well, let's talk a little bit about that new screen size. I feel like we didn't hover over that enough. So now it's 16 by 9, which means widescreen, and I think that has a couple implications on games. But one thing I did want to bring up, though, we kind of talked to some devs before the event. They're like, hey, let's say there is a widescreen, because basically everybody already knew there was a widescreen coming. How's it going to affect you? And I think Simon Flesher from Simogo summed it up the best. He explained that a lot of games lock aspect ratios, especially like 2D games, because they do that very specifically because that controls the experience of what players and users can see and do.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
It's a pretty big deal, and so whenever you have to consider now blowing up your game to 16 by 9. That kind of changes the game. That changes the area that you can play in, and it changes what you can see and what you can do potentially. Right? Yeah. It's kind of a big deal. And I almost wonder, Jared, like, what's your gut say about games actually getting updated for this?
Well, I don't think we're going to see a whole lot of older stuff get updated just to be wider or longer. Because. Apple's smart, and all the old apps are going to work just fine on the new iPhone. They'll just have like black borders up and down. But and it really, from the demo video, it really doesn't look bad at all when you're running.
Do they have any old apps on the demo phones that were out?
No, they only had like the CNN app, which has already been updated, and they only had updated long screen stuff. So didn't get a chance to see like what an actual old app will look like. But a couple of black borders above and below the screen, like everything else will just function the same. And so I don't think that there's that much value in going back and spending time trying to figure out how do you stretch this thing out just to make it fit for some of the older games.
Right.
So I think going forward it'll be interesting, and people will design with the longer screen in mind. But I don't think there's necessarily any benefit to going back and stretching the old games out. Unless you really have something that you've been dying to add that there wasn't room for before or something like that.
Yeah, and a couple of interesting points from that article too. I mean, Double Fine told us, "Hey, we have a crazy production pipeline which just spits out all sorts of ratios." And the same thing kind of goes with anybody who fiddles with Android devices, right?
Right.
Like they're making games for all sorts of kind of screen sizes. So I think the what's the word that we always use to describe how many damn Android devices there are?
Fragmentation.
I think the fragmentation of Android is seriously going to help a lot with these kinds of things moving forward. Nobody's really going to have to consider too hard. Should I make this 16 by 9 or just 4:3? Because you're going to make a 16 by 9 because you're potentially looking at releasing your game on Google Play as well and things like that. You're just ready for it at this point.
Well, you're talking about what you were just saying about how you have a fixed aspect ratio because the designer wants the player to see only a certain part of that level, and that's based on how big the screen is or whatever. So that's going to bring up some kind of interesting problems when you're trying to support the older phones and the iPhone 5. Because you're going to have to be designing with the tall screen in mind, but also with the smaller screens in mind. It's going to have to work on both and kind of provide the same experience because, the longer screen people are going to see more. So how do you,
We're going to see a lot of borders is what I think is going to happen.
Maybe.
A lot of
more spaces for ads.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of borders is, it'll be interesting because I think at some point these 4.3 phones are going to have to get left in the dust, and they might get left in the dust fast Because I mean, that's gonna be hard to go backwards.
I like 16:9. I mean, 16:9 makes sense for movies, obviously.
Yeah.
And you know, like if you look at console games, they're all HD widescreen, usually 16:9. So it's not like brand new territory for developing games or anything like that. But it is for the iPhone. So it'll be interesting to see what people do. But you know, something that you brought up when we were talking earlier, Brad. Landscape mode is like the bomb now because you have all this extra room. So if you're playing like a dual stick, you know, shooter or something like that, you got a lot more screen real estate right in the middle that you're not blocking with your thumbs and stuff like that. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it's weird because you remarked in your article, you know, it's kind of hard to reach the super top part of the phone now with your finger, you know, because it is longer. It's a longer thing, and you got big hands, and it's still kind of a struggle. You said that. I'm not calling your hands big, bro. You've admitted this.
They're man hands.
Man hands.
They're nice hands. I'm not gonna lie. I would like to have Jared hands.
I've kind of noticed, you know, just from looking at the App Store and kind of doing this for a while, that, you know, like the premier way to play games, I thought initially was kind of portrait mode games like Doodle Jump, stuff like that, and it kind of like gently started switching more towards landscape kind of games, and I feel like that's kind of the thing now, right? To play a game in landscape, but I mean, especially now, I mean that it's changed. Like that has to be the go-to. You're not going to see like a Doodle Jump anymore, right? Like portrait games are done.
No, I don't think so. Like I totally disagree with that because I think there's so many portrait games, and a lot of those, you know, are meant to be played like with one hand. Right. You know, past the time standing in line at the movies or something like that. You know,
absolutely.
like that's what a lot of people shoot for. And the landscape games, for the most part, are more like traditional types of games or trying to appeal to gamer type games, and where you got to have both hands to play. I mean, there's very few landscape games you can play one-handed. I think that zombie game we played a couple weeks back was one of the only ones I know of.
Yeah.
And so, you know, but I go through phases too where I'm like, okay, I'm sitting down to play a game, cool, like it's a dual stick shooter, awesome. Or if I'm just killing time somewhere, I'm busting out like Temple Run or something like that because I know it's just one hand, nothing to worry about.
Not a Temple
I don't
Run
think that's going to
derivative?
go away. What's that? Or a Temple Run derivative? Yes, one of the many. But I don't think portrait games are going to go away at all. I think it'll just need to be. You'll have to think a little bit harder about smaller hands trying to reach the top of the screen. So if you put something really important up there that you have to touch all the time, you might need to rethink that. Maybe it needs to go near the bottom, or maybe buttons in the middle, or you know, I don't know.
Right. No, a compelling point. Compelling point. You've almost swayed me.
We'll see. But there will be a lot of good landscape games that come out now too, like especially like first-person shooters and stuff like that. I think will really benefit from having more space for your thumb.
I'm sorry. I fell asleep when you said first-person shooter. Just for a second.
That's not your favorite genre on iOS?
Yeah, weird, right? Okay.
Liar.
I was reading that, you know, for a lot of games that are built in engines and development environments like Unity and stuff, like it's going to be a very easy update to
That'll be good.
Get it running on the screen.
I think for the most part, it's not going to like make huge waves just because it's a bigger screen or it's a little more space or anything like that. I mean, certain games like platformers, like you were talking about earlier, like certain games you really have to think about how you're going to do things because it changes up what your initial plans might have been or whatever. But I think for the most part, it's just bigger. You can see more, and that's not a bad thing, you know.
Yeah. What's going to be interesting to see is how the various like single screen physics games end up adapting to it. Because like, for instance, when you have a game like Cut the Rope, I mean, those levels are made to just be on that screen. You know, it's not like you can just go through and make them like all taller, you know, or whatever, because that's not how they were designed. I mean, you change the balance of the entire game.
Yep.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah, we'll see. I guess.
That's the interesting challenge. Like at some point too, you almost have to think that they have to throw away that consideration of you know, controlling the experience to that degree. You know, they're just gonna have to be willing to let the player see a lot of stuff on a widescreen, or you know, not see anything on a 4:3. I mean, it'll be weird. I mean, I almost wonder if we're losing a little bit of game design in the process of the switchover for the moment.
They need challenges. Got to keep them on their toes, those game developers.
Yeah, because they don't do enough.
You know what I don't want to see?
What?
Somebody that designs a game specifically for the longer screen, and then on older phones, it like black borders it.
Actually,
I
that'd
could
be
see
funny.
that happening.
Yeah, it will.
I could see it happening.
It'll happen. I mean, like, you're going to have to do that at some point. Like, at some point, you're just going to be like, all right. But, I mean, at the same time, iPhone 4 is going to be free and hot. I mean, that thing is going to be a big deal.
That's the thing. The screen sizes we have now aren't going away or anything like that. So it's not
gonna
like
be 3 years.
move forward.
Especially with the 4 being free and the 4S being $99. I mean, those screen sizes are going to persist for at least 2 years.
But I mean, you got to start somewhere. I mean, if you want to evolve, you want to have a bigger screen, you got to do it at some time.
Yeah, and that's of the nature of the beast in this ecosystem. I mean, you knew when you bought a phone coming in that there were going to be 2 new products from Apple every year.
Yeah,
and they might be drastically different.
Yeah.
And this time it is, I think. So overall impressions, iPhone 5, you played with it. I don't think we got to this point yet. Good?
It's good.
No, complete total disappointment.
Done.
Terrible.
Done. Moving on. No, it's awesome. And the sad thing is that, I think the hands-on thing was about an hour. And so I tried to muscle my way in as much as I could and get and play with one when I could. And I went back to my iPhone 4S, and I'm like, you're fat. You're heavy. I'm like, even just an hour of playing with these things, I'm already like, man, this phone is so bulky. It's like, it really isn't, but it makes you feel that way because it just feels like such future tech with the iPhone 5. It's so light and sleek and thin. And now I hold my old phone and I'm just like, I can't wait to get rid of you.
5 out of 5, Jared Nelson. Put that on the back of the box.
Word.
Apple. Put it on the back of the box. So that's great. I mean, new iPhone coming out soon. We really dig it. I can't wait to play with it. And of course, I'm sure we're going to bring you more impressions as we go hands-on with it and actually carry these things around. All right, let's do some emails before we close out the show. Klaus writes in, hey guys, there are a great many tower defense games on the App Store, such as Fieldrunners 2, which we talked about earlier, Tower Defense, Lost Earth, Jelly Defense, and Geo Defense. I want to know which is your favorite, and he adds a PS. Brad, Anomaly Warzone Earth doesn't count, and my man, Anomaly Warzone Earth is exactly what I'm going to say. Get off me.
That counts.
Get on my level. It is a tower defense game, and it is the very best that has ever been made, period, to this point.
Well, I love Anomaly, but it technically the tower offense or whatever you want to call it. So if you're going with the traditional tower defense games, it has to be Fieldrunners 2 for me because I really have never been that interested in any of the other ones. So
yeah.
Well, the geodefense games were really awesome, but
yeah,
in all of them, I kind of hit the difficulty. I mean, I played the shit out of them, then eventually just hit that difficulty wall and kind of moved on to something else. But yeah, I would definitely say those are games that
for
you need to
the
play.
people that really like crave that kind of challenge. Fieldrunners, I think, is more accessible while still being challenging. But yeah, I just love Fieldrunners, though. I mean, and I really don't like tower defense games, and I love that one. So
yeah. Hacker alias Team Beard writes in,
yes,
is the TouchArcade podcast a year old yet? If not, when's the big day, and what are you guys going to do to celebrate? P.S. Brad, don't cut your hair. I love the PSs that we get in all our emails. It's great.
I think you just add those on.
I don't.
Agree.
I don't.
I'm gonna start fact checking these emails.
Yeah. Don't do that. You'll kill the podcast.
P.S. Brad sucks.
We're a year old, right?
Are we? How many weeks are in a year?
52.
Oh,
got me. No.
Well, yeah. Apparently we are. Dude, we've been doing this podcast for a year.
I want to say, didn't we start after GDC last year, or was it WWDC?
Yeah, I mean, like we started like fresh at number 1 again.
Yeah, I want to say it was like March or April last year. So yeah, we're well over a year.
Well, we didn't even say anything. I don't think it occurred to us.
No, I don't think so either. We were all holding out for number 69, which is where we're at now. That was the milestone we were worried about.
And an iPhone 5 gets announced. I mean, who knew? Who knew, right?
Although the end of the world episode is going to be, I think that's just going to be a 24-hour all-day podcast.
Yeah, I think so.
Live streamed from midnight to midnight, including just dead audio when we're sleeping.
Yeah, I think it'll be worth it. I mean, that's going to be a hell of a party. It's going to be a big deal. Here we go. Rob writes in, hey guys, let me start by saying that you guys put out one of the best podcasts on the internet, and Brad is especially the best person on earth. My question for the podcast is, what is the craziest thing that a developer has done to get noticed and written about on TouchArcade? And I tell you what, Eli, this one tickled me. It tickled my memory. Remember when someone threw out a picture of their dog?
Oh yeah.
And you're like, oh man, I like dogs. Let's post about this because you just got a new dog at the time. Anyway,
I remember somebody had that game that had the Hodap as an enemy.
Oh
Do
yeah.
you remember that? I don't remember what the game was.
What it was.
Like one of those
Problem
fall down
is-
kind of games.
Yeah, the problem is like a lot of times the people that are like that do the crazy stuff to like desperate to get coverage, like they don't have a good game, so it's like hard to cover anyway.
Yeah.
So like, even though they're pandering to us in, funny or amusing ways, it's like I can't post about this game that's not good because this guy like,
Right.
Yeah, we actually get a lot of like emails and stuff that are like, "There's a special Touch Arcade level, blah blah blah," and it's like, "Oh, neat," and it's just a game that's not very cool, or not something that we'd really want to cover anyway. And so it's like, well, thanks.
Yeah, the thing to always remember about us is that we are an especially strong filter for the App Store. So I mean, you got to be up there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Just having a Touch Arcade affiliation in your game definitely doesn't mean we're gonna like cover it in any way.
what has been cool though is like when we cover a board game and they send the like real version too.
Oh yeah,
I've gotten that one board game. I don't remember
That's
what it
pretty
was.
cool. I think that's actually useful though too if you're trying to judge a digital version to actually have the hard copy version, if you will.
Yeah.
That's actually useful. But anyway, I was gonna say our first Touch Arcade show was May 27th, 2011. So we're way over a year, man.
Yeah,
like, what,
that's
a year and a
crazy.
half?
Wow. We'll have to try to remember to celebrate our 2-year anniversary.
Yeah, or whatever. I don't care.
Who knows? Whatever. Kate writes in, and we'll close out with. She asked a couple questions. We'll close out with her this week. Aren't you afraid that it will soon be impossible to find great games? Personally, I'm not sure that Tiny Wings would have done it today. 90 games a day is so much, and the new App Store search interface in iOS 6 doesn't make finding anything any better. It's an interesting point. I mean, like more and more games get released, it's harder to find the good ones. But I will say, we're pretty good at finding those hidden gems.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of where we come in. But at the same time, that's my biggest problem with Apple is that they let so much crap through. And then, at a keynote event like yesterday, they come out and 700,000 apps in the store and they like talk about it like it's amazing. But I'm like, what percentage of those are things that nobody would ever buy because they're just pieces of shit?
I bet
a lot of them.
I bet
like
a good
80%.
3%. I bet
Yeah,
a good 3% of those are fart apps.
Yeah, no, seriously. And so it's like, I wish they would curate a little harder with what they keep out and make it a little less noise so the good games could kind of have a chance to shine.
At the same time, I don't know. I don't know if I want that team, and no offense to them, but I don't know if I want that team judging quality and what is a video game.
Let me do it, Apple. I'll do it for free. I don't care.
I'm much more comfortable with, like, say, Valve evaluating games for Steam because, Valve makes games and they make the best games on Earth, and it seems like they get it. And they're interested in pushing a very specific type of game on Steam. They want a curated experience. I mean, they have a couple flops every once in a while, but most of the time, you go to Steam and you go buy a video game, it's going to be okay.
Speaking of Steam, here's a little prediction to put in the old pocket for later.
Okay.
Of mine. Steambox launching alongside new consoles, $300 to $400.
Nuts. Not gonna happen.
Uses the big
I think it'll be
picture
cheaper.
stuff.
Not gonna happen.
No, I could see that happening.
All right, last question, guys. Do you guys play games in your spare time? Understand that playing games is what you do for a living, but you seem to be really busy, so I don't know if you can actually play only because you want to, not because you have to write a new post. For example, Eli, have you completed 10 million? And I'm sure you have multiple times, right?
I hit a difficulty wall very close to the end, and I don't know. I kind of got a little frustrated with it, and then other stuff came out.
Yeah.
I need to get back to it though. Like every time I see the icon on my flipping through my iPhone, I'm like, I need to finish that.
Yeah.
But I need to. I play a lot of Team Fortress now.
Yeah, I see you all the time on Steam. We'll have to play again, bro. You're doing your LAN thing. You got your real friends.
Yeah. Well, I live with 3 other people, and we all play, so it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, I mean, I play a lot of games in my spare time. I feel like my perspective is kind of what I can offer. I come from a more console background, so I make sure to kind of stay up on the latest digital releases on those platforms and stuff like that. Like, for example, this weekend I finally finished Modern Warfare 3. I know that took a while, but I also beat Darksiders 2. Just kind of see that through, and I like video games, man. That's my thing. If I'm not at the gym, I'm playing games.
I need to make more time to play games just for fun because there's so many games that come out, and I try to really try like everything, and it's like you get so focused on doing it as part of your job that you forget to just be like, let me play a game that I like, or, have fun with it, or, whatever. You really need to do that to kind of cool down.
Yeah.
And I find that if I force myself to sit down and just play a game for the sake of having fun because I enjoy it, that it makes playing the games for work go by a little bit easier,
Yeah.
So it gets daunting. I mean, I have a huge backlog right now of just games to try from like the last couple of weeks of new releases, and it's
you can't
killing
try
me,
them all. I mean,
you can't.
I think what's important is, especially we do get inundated with games. We just see so many. Is like to hit on the ones that you think are actually going to offer something, not necessarily unique, but they want to share something like slightly different. Like the platformers like Mikey Shorts, which really tries to perfect the speed run kind of thing. I think that's an important game to play in the scope of speed running games, right? Whereas you could probably miss a lot of those along the way. Between Moss Speedrun and Mikey Shorts, you could probably miss all those in betweens.
Yeah.
It's just like it's just highlighting that. And again, I mean that's what we're here for, right? To be like, all right, this game, this is the one you want. Take a look.
Well, that's a good example of like Temple Run derivatives. Is like there's so many of them now, and a couple of them are decent, like worth playing, and then a vast majority of them are just like not good, and so you can just skip those ones, no problem. But the one or two that you want to hang on to are the ones that you end up spending time with or having fun just on the side with or whatever.
Yeah, totally. All right, well, I think that'll do it this week for an amazingly long second segment and a great podcast, guys. I had a good time. So
I pat myself on the back.
All right. Anyway, if you want to get in contact with us, you can totally do so. And I know we have kind of an email backlog. Hopefully, we'll be able to address that next week. When a new phone doesn't come out. Podcast@toucharcade.com. That's where you send those emails. If you want to connect with us via a different means, you can totally do so. Facebook.com/toucharcade. Twitter.com/TouchArcade. And also, of course, we have an app. I think I've talked about the app a couple times, but it's totally awesome. And it's finally universal. TouchArcade, one word, type it in iTunes and get the most electrifying app on the entire internet, period. Ever. Done.
Truth.
Cool. Yeah, that'll be it for this week. But of course, we'll be back next week with another episode of the Touch Arcade Show.